everyone back, and I've got a real Christmas kind of cracker lined up for the listeners here. You know, it's a bit of a surprise. This came out of the blue for me, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the following guest that I've got lined up for the show, because if you're around in the 80s and 90s, you'll certainly remember this character. His name is Michale Graves. He's the former frontman of the Misfits, and recently he fell victim to what I call the PC derangement syndrome. Now, this all happened when he was basically cancelled from the Edmonton's Up and Downtown Music Festival. Now, what happened was, basically, they went back and took a look at Michael's social media. And I'll get Michael to talk us over this in a moment. But there was a statement that came out, and it read like this. And this came from somebody called Brent Oliver. This was the guy behind this music festival. It says, "We found stories disapproving mental illness, asking if feminism is a cancer, and supporting Alex Jones and InfoWars, supporting Donald Trump, supporting other fascist and basically backward ideas that are really antithetical to what we believe as an organization and as a not-for-profit music festival." So, Michael, I want to welcome you to the show, man. And don't you worry, nobody's going to try and censor you here, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be on your show, and I'm excited, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of these very important issues.
It really is. And over here in the UK, I mean, we're no strangers from the weaponization of language and the whole 1984 style world that we live in now. But this story of yours, I first became aware of it. I follow Paul Joseph Watson over on Twitter. I met him at a Bilderberg one time, great guy. And he had basically put a tweet out highlighting that they were coming after you. They'd cancelled one of your gigs. So tell us what happened, dude.
Well, it's pretty much exactly how you described it. The artistic director for the Up and Downtown Music Festival that was in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. He supposedly somebody came to him and gave him a heads up on things that what they were saying, controversial links on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter and things that I had written in my blog as well. Like you said, all the links to Breitbart, links to Alex Jones, articles that were in support of Donald Trump. They cited a picture of me wearing a Donald Trump hat, and of course the Paul Joseph Watson tweets and links to his video.
How dare you, Michael? How dare you?
Oh, I know. Well, I know. It upset them so much that they found me guilty of violating their safe spaces, a policy that they had in place for this festival.
You see, here's the thing. There's a big part of the problem, Michael, isn't it? A safe space policy. I mean, what the heck is this all about? I mean, what are we doing to the children today? We're hardly preparing them for the real world when they're going to education centres where they're given safe spaces with paints and crayons so they can go and act like a 5-year-old. I mean, the world's going crazy.
Yeah, yes. What happened in this situation, and what happens when I believe that you execute on these safe space policies, is you just foster and nurture and solidify young people's fears that people who think differently or people who aren't in line with all of these rules and regulations and conformity policies, that not only are it's not even that well, we disagree with them, it's they are morally corrupt and they are lesser human beings than you and or I, right? And that is why it is linked to things like Nazism. You know, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, because what they're accusing me or us of doing, it's the old opposite. It's what they're doing, and they're projecting that out on us. And you know, it was a really strange thing to be in that, at that festival that night, because you know, it's like you have to look over your shoulder every other second. And to add fuel to the fire, when I eventually arrived at that festival, I was notified both by members of my team and from the owners, the promoters of the venue that I was playing at, that the Edmonton police, their hate crimes unit, had been contacted, and it was said that I was probably going to commit a hate crime that evening, and so there were officers there watching.
Wow, honestly, you could not make this up. And you know, in a similar kind of vein, I went to watch David Icke just recently over here in the UK in Glasgow. And it was quite strange because I booked the ticket 6 months ahead of time. And the venue, Michael, they wouldn't release it until the day before. Well, I went on to find out that the reason they do that is because there's a group, and they claim that David Icke talks about anti-Semitic material. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. He spends about 2 minutes of a 5-hour presentation talking about Israel. But, you know, this is the mentality of people today. And it's almost similar to the way that people have complained about you. And Icke talks about this new religion, and I think he nails it. It's the religion of I'm offended. Just everybody becomes offended. You're scared to talk anymore.
Yes, there are a lot of people who absolutely are. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid to espouse their views or say, yeah, you know what, I disagree with you. I see it at my shows, especially after I appeared on InfoWars. People come up to me, young and old, and it's like they get down close to my ear and they're like, hey, I saw you on InfoWars and I agree. And I'm like, you have to. Why are you saying that so softly? Like, what? And I it's a rhetorical question when I say, well, what are you so afraid of? But that's where we're at in the world, where you can't say these things, where you want to talk about whatever is going to somehow perhaps be linked to conservatism, to Christianity, to anything that is considered right-wing, conservative, libertarian, nationalist, and you could lose your job. You might lose your kids. You might get beat up. You might get killed. Who knows what's going to happen to you? And people are legitimately afraid, and that's exactly what these policies and what these weapons that have been and are being used against us in the culture war are supposed to do. And it's working on many, many levels. And that's why, as well, it's very important for people like me and people like you to have these conversations and tell people, especially now, that they need to be informed, they need to be smart, they need to be engaged, motivated, and wide awake and out there doing whatever is possible to expose these things and continue to make change.
Absolutely, brother. And, you know, we've seen you falling victim to the PC derangement crowd, but when they can go after Alex Jones, and I mean, he's such a divisive character, love him or hate him. I love him to bits. I mean, he helped to shake me out of my kind of comfort zone back in the day, and I still watch him to this day. But when they can basically disappear him, because, you know, when it comes to social media, he's gone. In some respects, he's bigger than ever. But when they can do that, Michael, that's really worrying. And even people like yourself, I mean, you're a rock star, for goodness sake, but the kind of audience that Alex pulls, people like me and you, I mean, we'll just disappear without even a whimper, right?
That's the truth, and that's the scary thing about this, is that indeed, thank the Lord that Alex Jones is so big, and it's not just Alex Jones. I mean, there's a lot of other prominent people that are and have been disappeared from the internet. Just they're gone. They can't operate anymore. But you're right. If I as well, thank God, if I didn't have the recognition that I have, and I haven't had the career and the almost 25 years in this business, a couple of bad articles like what happened in Edmonton, and I am finished. Thank God I was able to push back, and I had people from Dana Loesch to Paul Joseph Watson to Alex Jones, Andrew Wilkow, a lot of people in the conservative media and the libertarian media came to my rescue, if you will, came to my support and said, whoa, wait a second. We're not going to let this happen without everybody chiming in. I would be gone. And, I have a family. I have children that I have to take care of. And it's a scary thing. And again, for me to have now crossed over, if you will, to the and I have pictures with Alex Jones, and I was on InfoWars, and I've been on all of these other conservative media, but especially InfoWars. I've sealed my fate in a lot of ways. I will never have the opportunity to reach certain levels of the music and entertainment industry because of who I am and the things that I've stood for and wrote for and fought for now for the better part of over 15 years. 15 years I've been engaged in the culture war, going hard and being attacked on many, many levels. This isn't the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. And that's why there's a chilling effect on people that are coming up through the ranks of the industry and as well are already in it. They're like, I ain't going to say anything. Even if I do kind of agree with you. I ain't saying a damn thing, because all of a sudden opportunities start to dry up. Agencies don't want to touch you. Magazines, why would they even talk to you to put your name out there? They're not going to. Managers will avoid you. Record companies won't touch you. It's over. And bands will hate you, and so will the fans in a lot of instances. However, I see, like I said, a lot more people coming up to me and saying, man, I agree with what you're saying, and it's a good thing. So how much has the industry changed then, Michael, from when you were in it back in the heyday, in the wild 80s, to what it is today? The industry's changed enormously, and that is as well one of the reasons that I can do so well is because I am so DIY. I've built this machine, and I've used the innovations that have come through technology on the internet to my advantage, and all of the different avenues of opportunity that innovation has created, from publishing to releasing records to capitalizing projects and businesses through crowdsourcing, and again being innovative myself with fan experience and products and things that I market to my fan base, and all the while growing it all. So it's changed enormously. I mean, back even when I first started in the industry, the formula was, the record companies were still flush with cash, so they would sign you, they would give you an advance, you would record a record, you'd make some videos, you'd go out on tour, and then you'd repeat the process. And if you didn't, and it was the record companies controlled everything. and all the radio stations, and so it's changed a lot, as the record companies and they began to all come together, and the different corporations bought them up. They stayed with that same formula, and none of the companies really rode the wave of innovation, and it's lent towards the independent artists. It's just in a lot of instances in the music industry and rock and punk, you get a lot of lazy people, that just want to play their instruments. They just want to be in a band. And if you're willing to work hard, real hard, and stick with it, you're able to be successful on your own. Much different than 10, 15 years ago.
No, absolutely. And, living over here in Europe, we've got the EU and this Article 13 and Article 11 that are coming along. We see YouTube as well. It's changing all of its kind of copyright laws and algorithms right now. But as somebody who does create music, I mean, do you take a hit because of platforms like YouTube, or do you find them actually good? I mean, you can get your music out there, Michael.
I find them to be good. It gets my music certainly out there for other people, and that's the thing. I don't rely solely on YouTube or solely on Facebook for income or for certain things. It's an addendum. It's something extra that gets me out there.
It's almost like advertising, right? I mean, it's almost like an advert.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed. Powerful. They're obviously both powerful tools because of how big they are. They are the biggest, but I don't frown upon those services. For promotion wise.
Absolutely. And when you see Jonesy not on YouTube anymore and the way things are changing, it's turning more into corporate tube. There's another platform where we're going to lose our free speech and our ability to get the message out there. And you've got a website, I've got a website, but this internet, week by week, it seems to be getting more and more controlled. Michael, wouldn't you agree?
I agree 100%. I'm hardly on Facebook anymore because
good man.
Other than I push stuff on Facebook. I use it as a promotional tool, but more and more I'm trying to reach and working behind the scenes, building mechanisms to reach the fans in different ways. Facebook's not going to be around forever, and YouTube's not going to be around forever, and that's fine. There's other platforms that will and are going to come into play if we can beat back all of this censorship stuff that we're seeing and hearing about. Because if we let our governments do it, we're done. We're done. Especially people like you and I. And like you said, I may be popular in the minds and hearts of many people, but as far as power, again, I'm one of those people, second, third rung down on the list. They'll make me disappear, and it will be very, very easy. And I won't be able to fight back. It'll be rough.
So how do you see things playing out in the States right now? Because Donald Trump's come in there. We hear about him going after the swamp, stuff like that. We see people in the street. You've got this Antifa mob. They're out there being the fascists that they claim they're actually opposed to. Go figure that one out. But where does this end, Michael,
Well, I keep on saying that I ultimately know that we will be victorious at the end. However, it is so twisted and corrupt in over here in my country that on every level, from the street level all the way up, that things are going to get crazy. Things are going to continue to spiral. And I think as we move forward, things are going to continue to get crazier as we right this ship. You see the Trump administration, trying to do a lot of things that are in the interest of peace all over the world, in the economic interest of not only my countrymen and people like me, but again, the whole world. But in doing things like that, in going after and routing out corruption and fighting to make things right and good, it's not going to happen overnight, because the corruption and the godlessness and the evil is so deeply rooted that it's going to push back or continue to push back with everything that it's got. Again, over here in America, the resistance against the Trump administration and the freedom movement and the nationalist movement, the Christians, the libertarians, whatever you want to call them, the pushback is so entrenched, so well funded, and so organized that it's not just going to dissolve overnight. It's going to spill out onto the streets. It's going to be seen everywhere.
And you're so right, dude. I mean, you look at the pictures of some of the people in the streets just after he had won the election, and I mean, this looked like a kind of wave of mental illness that was going around, people screaming and crying, and that's what I don't get. How people, this time round, how it's so different from other elections in the past. But you're right, there's so much money being thrown at it by the them, by the they, and they're evil to the core. They're psychopaths, dude. It's the only way you can really get your head around what they get up to.
Sure. You think about all the cartoons that we grew up with, right? You have like Skeletor, all the bad guys that are in. That's what we're dealing with at the head of the snake, if you will. The worst Dr. Evils that you can imagine. Tavistock Foundation, on and on. But what's scary is that there's generations of young folks that don't remember what it's like to dial a phone or push the buttons on a phone. All they know and all they've grown up with are those devices in their hands. And again, so we're dealing with ignorance. We're dealing with mass ignorance, right? So if you have ignorance, it's easy to manipulate. It's easy to control. These kids are looking at their phones and their computers, not realizing that the AI is specifically programming and manipulating itself to cater to the individual. And so therefore, it's feeding them all of this information for what it wants to, the AI, what it wants to have that person perceive reality to be. That's what all the algorithms are. That's what Google and Facebook, that's what the fight is over, control of reality. But then when you have thinking people that are going, wait a second, I get that you're beaming the signal into my brain, but I do remember what it was like before we all went to sleep. And this is all wrong. And people who sit and they read and they fill their minds with knowledge, right? Truth, knowledge will set you free. They are the ones that are pushing back. But there's a lot of sleeping folks that are, like you said, they're mentally deranged, they're mentally manipulated, and attack of the zombies.
Absolutely. And that's not even to be, we're not speaking bad about these people. They're just kind of a result of the very clever programming that's taken place. And I heard you describing yourself as the canary in the coal mine. And that's what it feels like a lot of the time when you're trying to tell people what's going on. But it's almost like they're glazed over, Michael, that you see them, like you say, zombies, totally programmed.
Yeah, yes. And more in the past, 6 or 8 months, I've been appearing on talk shows, like, speaking to folks like you that are having conversations about these things. So again, the canary in the coal mine is that I kind of keep my head down. I mean, sure, I'll blog now and then, but I kind of keep my head down when I'm out, when I'm on stage, my music. It's not out in front. So, but all of a sudden, I find myself in these, enormous fights. I mean, the New York Times will write an article about me, or an entire country will decide to cancel my gigs, or
it's okay, dude. It's okay, man. I'll sneak you into Scotland. Don't you worry about that.
So yeah, you see me again as the canary in the coal mine. That you say these things, you take these stands, and look at the fire that you draw. It's incredible. Just real quick, when I was in Australia at the end of the Sydney show, as I was addressing the audience as I do and just thanking them, a young man started yelling "fascist, racist," right? And he was freaking out. And so I began to speak to him, and I specifically remember looking in his eyes and in thinking back on that whole episode, he was so angry, and that's all he had. All he had was fascist, racist. You're a bad person. And I was saying to him, you don't know me. All that you've heard about me, you've seen in passing. Maybe a couple of sentences on the internet, or you saw a headline that linked me to some of these things that automatically trigger this response, this emotional response. It's not that's not anchored. It's not coming from any sort of intellectual core where I have all of this information and now I'm going to react. It's just this emotional thing where you have these series of words and it just sends these folks out completely irrational, and it was kind of sad. I felt bad because with the younger folks, it's almost like because of the world that we've built, they don't have anything that they really feel that they can hang on to. And so they get into these groups that they feel like they're against the government and all of these things to give themselves meaning, to fill themselves with some sort of meaning. Just like it's like a cult, like you said, it's a cult that they've joined. But it's based on emotions and it's not based on real information and facts. And it's very, 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 very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Exactly. And it's like the universities have even rewired the mind. They totally skip logic and go right for emotion. And that's why these people are so easily triggered. Always the same words that do it, always the same kind of ideas. And I find it interesting to observe, but really, really disheartening because, maybe my generation, your generation, we kind of went to sleep at the wheel a little bit, Michael. And, maybe that's what happened. But the ones growing up today, like you're saying, from the technology that they get from younger and younger ages. I mean, you're talking sometimes now 1-2 years old, they've got a tablet in their hands. Then they go through the indoctrination centers, the universities, the schools. And what hope do we have on the other side of that? Because then they're all going to be the same. It's going to be like something out of Brave New World or 1984, like I said before.
Right. That's exactly what's happening. And it's been told exactly how nations and how countries would be taken over. It's spelled out before us. If one just goes and decides to look, and the younger generation was a generation, I think Z, is coming up much more conservative, much more awake, if you will. They know something's up. They know some sort of signal is being beamed into their brains, and they don't like it. And that's when we talk about these neo-punks that are awake, and they say, wait a second, DIY is something completely different than what's being talked about, but what all of these bands and people and groups are circled around. That's not DIY. But again, what's happened to us in this fight that we're in has been scripted. It's been laid out. Even if you just look at it was entered into the record in the American government how the communists were going to come and take over. They number the steps. and say this is how we're going to do it, and they write books about it and put out papers, and they talk openly about it, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. It's incredible.
That's the one thing, that
very, very, very dangerous.
It always used to leave me shaking my head when I'd hear Alex Jones talking about just what you're talking about here, or Jordan Maxwell, or any of these other people, and you would come to find that it's all there in writing. They never even hid anything. There's no conspiracy going on here because they've been quite open throughout the ages about the plan that's rolling out now. It's crazy that they left it all there in the open.
Yeah. All one has to do is just do a little bit of research, and it's all right there for you. Whether the Communist Party in America they're no longer in the shadows. I mean, it's cool to be socialist. It's easily retrieved, all of this information, whether it's the UN, again, like we said, whether it's the Tavistock Institute, whether it's any of the Nazi programs, where the Nazi programs came from. When you just, even at a glance, read about the French Revolution, the Bolsheviks, on and on and on. It's all right there.
And history always repeats, Michael. And you mentioned the French there. And look at the protests over there right now. We've got the yellow vests, and they're literally got guillotines out in the street. I mean, that's how you get things changed over there. And I'm not calling for violence or anything, but over here in the UK, we've got Brexit. And people are literally calling for a second vote, even though it means you're taking the side of Tony Blair and George Soros. And of course, what is the EU? I mean, when you start reading, you find out, well, the EU was Hitler's idea. It's a crazy world that we live in, dude. It truly is. You couldn't make it up.
Incredible times. But that's the thing. My people and your people, we understand what's going on, and especially because we understand the resistance, if you will. The resistance understands the chains and the bondage that we are in, and how much more will come to us and our children if we don't push back and fight back. In France, you see it spilled onto the streets, right? In America, same thing. We will never, ever, ever, ever go down without a continued fight. It's just not going. Whatever comes, and that goes back to your question of how far this goes. Where does this end? This is either going to end in 1,000 years of darkness, or we're going to be able to right this ship. And continue to work towards another global renaissance, or we're going to go into the dark ages again. And the people that want to usher in that darkness, that horrible, horrible global bondage, the likes of which the planet Earth has never, ever seen before, except in science fiction movies, of the people that wrote it and conceived those ideas, from the people that are putting this into place, that are still working on it. And so yeah, like I've said before, I'll say it again, that there's more fire to go through, especially in my country.
Absolutely. And I wish I could say it wasn't over here as well, but the UK, dude, you're going to be coming over here soon. You'll see what I mean. I think it's one of the symptoms of globalization. We're all hitting rock bottom at the same time. That seems to be what's happening. But if there's one positive thing I can take from what happened to you at Edmonton, it's events like that will start to wake people up. It'll start to kind of bring them out of their slumber, break that programming, Michael. And it might not be Michale Graves getting banned from playing somewhere. It might not be another 2 or 3 of these little small events, but something's going to happen. I do believe, and I've got to be optimistic, that something will turn the tide. And like you say, we will right the ship. And and we will be able to make it our golden age as opposed to their idea of a golden age.
Yes. Yeah, you have to remember that here in America, whatever you think about Donald Trump, people like me, all the way back to the Ron Paul movement, when that started, we continue to work and fight, and getting Donald Trump into the American presidency was a huge, huge, huge victory for us. And we're continuing winning and having victories. And I continue to tell people, it's the small things that you do. One conversation, walking outside with a shirt that says Jesus is my co-pilot, or anything like that, red pills people. It wakes people up. For me, after everything, and I had said this to a group of young people that I was speaking with on the road, a conservative group. I said, it's, that night, nothing was really said about any of the events that had taken place at the Up and Down Fest. But me just walking up on that stage, number one, and two, walking up on that stage with an InfoWars shirt was a huge victory. And it showed that we won't be pushed around, we won't be bullied. And if and when we do, we're willing to accept whatever consequences that come with it. And that's real, true courage. And when other people see that, hey, that guy's not afraid. That gives other people courage. That gives other people the fortitude to then as well stand up a little straighter, maybe talk about these things a little bolder, maybe a little bit louder, and not be afraid. And that will continue to turn the tide. It's not a comfortable thing, but that's the thing. Life is not comfortable. Life is not easy. It's the other side that has these utopian dreams of always feeling good and comfortable, and everything is just going to be wonderful. Hey, man, that's not life. That's not reality. And so once we break from our comfort zones and we stand up, and we continue to stand up, we'll get there. We'll get there. We will be victorious.
Exactly. And life was never meant to be easy. It really wasn't. And that's where they really want to take us to, isn't it? Somewhere where we think we get something for nothing, and life is an easy thing. It's that socialist kind of model that they're moving towards. It truly is.
I hate to. I forgive me for bringing God into this whole thing, but again, history repeats itself. There are plenty of stories in history that you can go back to and see when nations and societies lose God, they get away from God. Bad things happen. The Jews walked around that mountain for 40 years. They couldn't get into the promised land because, once again, they started worshiping cows and all these other things, and they got away from God. On and on. And so there you go. When you take God, like is happening in America here, when you take Jesus out of a society and demonize it and twist it and break it, bad things happen.
Absolutely. And we talk about this a lot on the show, and it's almost as if admitting you're a Christian nowadays, if you're anyone who's any level of fame at all, it's detrimental to your career. It's almost like a dirty word now.
It's true.
I don't get it at all, Michael. I really don't. And, each to their own. I don't mind what anyone believes in so long as they're not calling for violence against others. But when it comes to Christianity, I mean, you can really see how they're trying to literally fight a war on it.
Well, yeah, sure. Because when you take God out of, when you take God out of a society, well, people are going to run to somewhere for answers. You can't get away from human nature of pondering our mortality, pondering what it is to be human. Who am I? Why am I here? What is happening to me? Everybody needs a moral anchor. Everybody needs something to hold on to, because we're humans. We're humans, and one of the things that we all certainly have in common that will ever, never get away from is that we're all going to die. After this, something's going to, it's over. And humans have a sense that obviously there's something bigger. There's something bigger, and that's the connection to God. And when you get away from that, again, time after time after time, we can point demonstrably at events in history that things go south, if you will.
Absolutely, and you can even see some of these elitists today, how they're even trying to cheat death. I mean, they're trying to become literally their own gods with cloning, with CRISPR, editing the DNA. They literally want to be gods on Earth.
That's right. That's right. And when you take away the supernatural God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God that I believe in, what's being done by the state, by the controllers, by the globalists, is you take that away and say, there's no God. Look, we can do all of these things. Say we're just like God. You don't need to look at the Roman Catholic Church. Oh, it's all broken. You don't look. We are gods. We'll take care of you. The state will take care of you. The government will take care of you. All of us together will take care of you. All you have to do is just take a bite out of this apple.
That's exactly it, dude. Just take the microchip. You'll be fine. You can live in the utopic wonderland that we've got waiting for you. Don't worry about anything. Everything's fine. Your government loves you.
Yeah. And for your listeners, all you got to do is just go into Google and Google the 45 communist goals, and it's all laid out there for you.
It's like a script. It's like a script, isn't it, Michael? It's like living in the times today. It's a checklist.
Of course it is. It's a military plan, and people that understand any sort of plan, whether it's a military or it's the plan to go outside to feed the chickens. Okay, this is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to do A, then we're going to do B, then we're going to do C, which is going to give us this outcome. And that's what's happening here. Everybody, we're not just bouncing along in these cultural things and these political fights, and it's not just by haphazard. There's a plan that's being implemented, that has been implemented for a long ass time. And it's being carried out, and it's a means to an end. And what I as well tell younger people, if you don't think that terrible things can't come here and do happen here, then God help us all. My grandfather, who's still alive, remembers he fought in World War II. His brother died in World War II. When again, all of those Jews got locked up and murdered just a plane ride away. And so the level of catastrophe, I think, because we've televised everything, and again, especially here in my country, the level of brutality and catastrophe that we are capable of at this point, because of the lessening of feeling and emotion and what is in touch with reality, is mind-boggling, right? Mind-boggling.
Absolutely. And I often say, Michael, this is the most interconnected we've been, technologically, but it's the most disconnected we've been physically ever. It used to be where you'd have a conversation, and most of a conversation, the actual speech part of it, it's not the main game in town. You've got pitch, tone, you've got body language. And you even see now when you go out, I mean, most people, they've got their heads down, they're not speaking to one another. And when they do it, it's not like conversations of old. It's like broken, kind of awkward exchanges. It's really, really grim when you see what's happening to us. We're going backwards.
We have to remember that we're humans. We're not machines. And machines and artificial intelligence, artificial things, artificial intelligence and machines, and they've become our world, and they are manipulating us. They're manipulating us spiritually. They're manipulating our relationships. They're manipulating our bodies just by being close to these machines and being in the ether of the wavelengths and the the electromagnetic things that are happening that make all of these things happen. They're changing us. They're changing our children. The chemicals that we're exposed to, the food that we're eating, the air that we're breathing, we are being changed. And so the more human things that we can do, you go outside, you grow a garden, you talk to your neighbors, you sit down with your family. These things are going to combat against what the evil or the negativity in the world, the bad things in the world that they're trying to change us into. It's such a complex thing. I mean, truly, it's so complex. All of these different things that are being waged against us, and all of the different things that are happening on a global scale, that it's so hard for people to wrap their minds around. And as well, the ignorance of the other side, of not the ignorance and the laziness of others who just take in some headlines and, oh yeah, did you hear what Madonna said? Oh my God, that's what's happening.
I feel your pain, man. But I love getting into the technology, the AI, the quantum side of things, and I feel the need sometimes to actually emphasize when I'm talking about science fiction programs or movies and the real world, because the lines are really blurred now, Michael. And sometimes when you're talking about some of the stuff they're coming out with, even me, I've looked into the stuff, I've read the research behind it, and even I have to pinch myself, because this is a wacky kind of crazy world that even the sci-fi movies barely predicted.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. It really is. Where people just stare into a screen, and we're so disconnected from real reality, that anything is possible in people's minds. That's the whole, everybody gets a trophy. Anything is possible. But then when you break out of that, Facebook, oh, I got 1,000 friends on Facebook, but then I'm going to go to high school and everybody makes fun of me. I got 2 friends. You have this lopsided, you have these lopsided things happening where you get into the real world, and it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing that you just want to close your eyes and go into this world with these machines that are going to cater everything that you see, feel, hear, and experience to your pleasure centers in your brain.
This is how you end up in a world like the Matrix. I always used to wonder, how the heck did the Matrix get to where it was, And this is it, because people now probably would choose to check out and just become some kind of power source and get kind of injected into a virtual reality.
People think that the industrial killing of people and the science and the know-how and the things that will ultimately achieve the goals that the industrial killing of people would achieve. People think that just stopped at the Nazis. Do you think that the people that were behind Hitler, it wasn't just Hitler showed up and Germany was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do this. All of the industries, all of the universities, all of the people and institutions and money and ideologies, on and on, all of those things that created all of that was just perpetuated. It just continued in different forms in different places in the world.
So I've got to
after
laugh,
World War II.
We've got Juncker, the guy who is absolutely drunk as a skunk by noon every day. He heads the EU. Now that name Juncker probably rings a bell with people, because that was the kind of the company that built the German Nazi war machine. So we've literally got a Nazi at the head of the EU. I mean, these same people, like you say, it didn't go anywhere. It might have changed the uniforms into suits and shirts and ties, Michael, but it's the same machine that pushes us forward today.
That's right. That's right. It's the same machine. It's the same ideology. It's just worlds apart worse because of the technology that they have at their disposal now. These these major tech companies and the global reach of it all. One needs not look any further than China, and I've been to China. Just looked at China, and that is the beginning of the future for everybody.
Well said, man. Well said. That social credit scoring is coming to a country and a city near everyone. That is their ultimate kind of system of control.
That is absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying to somebody like me. Time moves fast, right? So 5-10 years is just the blink of an eye. 5-10 years from now, if we continue on this path and we usher in this credit score idea and agenda, and it's been brought up in the American Congress that something like that should be implemented, and with the continuation of the takedown and the demonization of Facebook, it's not just because Facebook it's not just because Facebook violated some standards and gave everybody's information to all these different companies. There's more to it. They're taking down Facebook and all these other sites, especially Facebook, to ultimately to control the internet, which everything is tied to, everything. And so 5-10 years from now, you see something where, oh man, it's just a total, I hate a prison planet, and you know, no pun intended, but there's no escape. There'd be no escape, none. You can't climb over the fence. At least if you're held in a concentration camp, maybe you can get through the fence or something like that and run.
What's even worse, Michael, is most people don't even see the fence. They enjoy this reality now. They don't realize that we've got invisible digital bars all around us. And there we are buying Alexa and all the other gadgets and increasing that prison around us all the time. And we pay good money for it. It's crazy.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. And in between these giant events that everybody then pays attention to, you're right. We sink deeper and deeper into the bondage. You're right, with these Alexa things that are always listening to us and plugging everything into the smart grids and biometrics and
talking of smart grids, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, brother, but this has been awesome, and this is the way it always ends up when I get a good guest. We go here, there, and everywhere. So I apologize for that, but I've had really good fun. But you mentioned smart grid there, and I always make a joke about the fact I live in the UK's first smart city. But you'll be able to experience that firsthand soon, won't you? Because you're coming to Glasgow. You're coming over to Europe, right? Tell us about that, man.
Yeah, I leave for Europe January 2nd. And I start the tour out in Poland. And I'll be doing 55 dates all across Europe.
Wow, man. So you're looking forward to coming to the smart city here, yeah?
I am very excited to be coming to the smart city.
I hope you've got a kilt. I hope you've got the kilt ready for Glasgow, man. It's like mandatory. You have to wear the kilt.
I'm down. Totally down.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Michale Graves. I've had an absolute blast and some really great information for you to take away and consider this holiday period. So, Michael, where can people find your work and find out details for the gigs before I let you go, man?
Best thing to do is go to officialmichaelgraves.com. Officialmichaelgraves.com. All of the tour dates, all of the links to the VIP stuff, all the links to videos, music, and much more.